Hello and welcome to the Stride Report's Transfer Value Rankings. Today we're going over the women's side, and with me to go over all of these in detail, Ben Burney. How are you doing today?
Doing fantastic, thank you. Feels wonderful to be back. Obviously, we've done the men's, and now we're on to the women's, and this is a very exciting list. So I'm looking forward to going through it with you.
Absolutely. I think we had a lot of really good discussions about this one, and I think the name at the very top of the list is going to surprise some people. So we'll just tease that at the very beginning. But before we get started, and we did this when we did the men's side, I think we just need to establish what we're looking at, what our criteria is for ranking men and women on this transfer value rankings. And so the first thing we want to put out is, obviously it's very important that you're a good runner. You need to be nationally caliber type of runner. But secondly, you also have to have, or it's more beneficial for you to have a good amount of eligibility. So when you're comparing maybe a national champion with one season or 1 year left of eligibility compared to maybe an All-American who has three, there's a discussion there. Not necessarily saying one is better than the other, but it's at least a very close discussion because of that eligibility.
No, absolutely. I think, as they say in accounting, cash is king. Here, eligibility is king. So the more you have, the better it's going to look from our perspective. And also, it also plays into what event you do. For instance, if there's a steeplechase specialist and they don't have much eligibility left on the track side, but do have a lot on the cross-country side, they may see themselves further down the list because their primary event, the one where they are likely to become All-American, maybe even win a national title, they're not quite there yet. They only get one or maybe two opportunities left to do so. So I think, as I said at the start, eligibility is going to be really, really important. But also you've got to factor in how good a runner is. The better the runner they are, normally they'll find themselves higher up the list.
Absolutely. And the context of what event they're running or how good they are across multiple seasons is a good point, because what I think we found when we were talking about the men's last time is if you have like All-American or scoring potential across 3 seasons, cross country, indoor and outdoor track, that is super valuable. And so to be able to have that for some of these like maybe true distance stars is very valuable. But at the same time, if you're one of the best 800-meter runners in the country, we're not going to penalize you for not having that cross country ability. So it kind of goes both ways. But anything else that we should highlight about these rankings before we dive into our honorable mention?
No, I don't think so. I think we've covered everything we need to say. And as we go down the list, we'll give our reasoning and also talk about the athlete's eligibility, so you get a picture of what we're thinking as well.
Yes, and that's a good note as well. So we have the eligibility for each of these athletes. We did our best. It is difficult with those COVID years, but looking at T-First results and T-First profiles and athletic team profiles, we have come up with what we believe is the eligibility for each of these athletes, and that's what we will be reading off. We did our best to be 100% accurate. I'm sure there's one or two that we're slightly off on, but for the most part, these should be their eligibility. So with that said, let's dive into our honorable mention, and I'll read off, and these aren't in any particular order. We're just going to read off 10. I'll start with the first 5. First up, we have Macy Grice, and then we have Alexandra Carlson, Lucy Jenks, Mia Cochran, and Chloe Scrimgeour. Out of this group, Finn, who do you think was like one of the hardest for us to leave out of that top 50?
For me, I think it has to be Maisie Grice. You're looking at someone who is a fantastic steeplechaser, very well-rounded when it comes to cross. But as I mentioned in our introduction, her primary event is the steeplechase. But with only one season of eligibility for steeple, I think that makes it harder to rank her in this list. Yes, she's an All-American in that discipline, but I think the fact that you're only going to get to see her one more time on the outdoor circuit does hamper her ability to make the list. So for me, that was probably the toughest one out of the 5 to put in.
Yeah, she's super talented. 2 years of eligibility in indoor and cross, but like you said, that only 1 season left of outdoor. I think for me, there's a couple names. Mia Cochran just has so much eligibility left that I think she was an interesting name. 3 years of cross and indoor, and I don't think she ran outdoors last year, so she has that 4 full seasons. Showed a lot of flashes. At time was 12th at SECs last year, 64th at NCAA's in cross country. And then someone like Chloe Scrimgeour, a lot more eligibility maybe than you think. 2 years in indoor and in out, or no, sorry, 2 years in cross country and in outdoor, 3 years indoor of eligibility. She was an All American this past spring in the 5K. She's a great cross country runner, 59th in the NCAA last year. So just a lot to like from those 2 women in particular. But like, I mean, just to quickly touch on, Alexandra Carlson has shown great flashes, has 2 full years of eligibility left. And then Lucy Jenks as well has almost 2 full years. She unfortunately only has 1 outdoor season left, but just someone who has been impactful again across all 3 seasons at times. So a really tough group to leave off. I'll let you go ahead and name the next 5 honorable mention.
Okay, so we have Riley Penn, now of Florida State, formerly of Cincinnati.
No, now Louisville, I believe, right?
Louisville. Well, that's news to me.
Yes, all right. You keep talking. I'll make sure I have that right.
Peyton No, high school superstar, heading to Arkansas. Leah Stevens, high school superstar, making her way to Florida State. And then Anika Reese of NAU. And finally, Samari Dishon, formerly of New Mexico, now heading off to Colorado. So for me, on this list, you've obviously got the 2 high school stars. They're going to have favorable eligibility. They've got 4 across the board. Both of them are slightly more distance orientated. And I think the pair of them are going to programs that are going to suit them well. For instance, Peyton No off to Arkansas. She has a 16:04 5K to her name, and I think that's a great fit for the Razorbacks. And she also finished top 10 in both the NXN Cross Country Champs and the Champs Sports. While Ben's working on Riley Penn, I'll move to Samari Dishon. She was a difficult one, and I think she was, again, like Maisie Grice, one of those that was on the cusp of making the list. She's very valuable when it comes to cross country. We saw her come 37th at NCAA championships last season and does have some decent eligibility. But since she is so strong on grass, it kind of outshines her ability on the track. Not saying it's bad, but comparatively to some of the women we've listed ahead of her, I don't think it matches up, which is why she just misses the list. But that is a tough one for her. Have we got an update on Riley Penn?
Yes. So Riley Penn, yes, she is. So she was transferring initially to Florida State, but then due to some coaching changes, she is going to Louisville. So yeah, but she's going to be a big boost for that program as Coach Franklin kind of starts to rebuild their great middle distance runner. But yeah, Dishon, I think, is the one I wanted to highlight. Such an underrated transfer, I feel like, to Colorado. There was a lot of, obviously, I think a lot more maybe headliners that came through, thinking about Natalie Cook. But she has just been quietly very good, very consistent, especially in cross country. And like you said, if she can kind of put things together a little bit more on the track, then she becomes someone who is insanely valuable and is someone that would definitely be in this top 50. Even as it is, it was really hard to leave her off.
Absolutely. And going back to Riley Penn, another one difficult to leave off, but I think eligibility is really what held her back there, with only 1 season on the grass and then 1 season outdoors. That's tough eligibility to have, particularly for someone that is middle distance focused, 201 800 and 410 for 1500. Unfortunately, only seeing her 1 more time on the outdoor oval is slightly hindering her.
All right, so anything else on this honorable mention before we dive into our top 50?
No, I don't think so. I think we've covered it pretty well so far.
All right, let's start with our 46 through 50 in our Stride Report transfer value rankings coming in at number 50. We have Marley Starlipper at 49, Jenna Hutchins, 48, Victoria Patterson, New Oregon Duck. At number 47, we have Wilma Nielsen. And at 46, we have Savannah Rourke. So this is such an interesting group. The 49th and 50th names, Hutchins and Starlipper, you're talking about huge potential. They've shown flashes. Hutchins was obviously one of the best high school runners we've really ever seen at that level. Starlipper has shown that she can be one of the best runners in the country when healthy and when firing. It's just we haven't seen that a ton from either of these women, but they both pretty much have 3 full years of eligibility. Starlipper has just 2 seasons outdoor, but their talent and just the amount of eligibility they have left just was too good for us to leave them off the list, even though they have been super inconsistent and you don't always know what you're going to get from them.
I completely agree. Starlup is a name who many people know from high school. She was simply superb back then. And as you said, we've seen flashes from her 15:36 5K and back in 2022, and which got a ninth at NCAA outdoors. And what's favorable for her is the eligibility. She has time to get it right. And with the move to Colorado, it's a great team and it's going to be a great setup. She's got loads of new transfers to run with. And I think we may just see the very best from her in the coming years, which is why I think she makes the list, despite her success so far in college being fairly patchy. But at the end of the day, talent doesn't go away. So I feel like she has to make the list on that basis. And I completely agree about Jenna Hutchins. Plenty of eligibility to burn and really showed how good she was in her first year.
Yeah, I mean Hutchins 15:35 this past outdoor season in the 5K. That was kind of the result where you're like, "Oh, all right, there. She looks like she's on her way back." She didn't finish the season strong, unfortunately, but showed some signs, ran a 9:05 3K indoors as well. Just didn't have a great cross country season, unfortunately. But her and Starlipper, you feel like even after next year, when they're down a year of eligibility, they could be way higher on this list if they have good years because, like you said, they have the talent. And even down a year of eligibility, they'll still have a good amount of eligibility moving forward, which makes them, I think, maybe they could be the highest risers that we see on this list next time. This time next year.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
So let's move on. Victoria Patterson obviously just transferred from Columbia to Oregon, has 2 full years of eligibility. What do we like about her that put her in our top 50?
I think what particularly I like the most is she's very well rounded. Just missed that All American spot at last year's cross country nationals, finishing 41st. But she was a runner up at the Penn State National Open and runner up at the Ivy League Cross. She also has some excellent times to her name: a 9:02 3K, a 15:55 5K, and her steeplechase of 9:51 actually qualified her for the 2023 Outdoor National Meet. She's got plenty of eligibility. She's making that move to Oregon. Great coaching setup there. I think we're really going to see the best out of her. And as I mentioned, a well-rounded athlete. And I think that really works in her favor.
I'm high on the Oregon Ducks this year in cross country, and I think she's a huge reason why I am. I like you said, I think she's going to break out this cross country season and become a little bit more of a household name. Even though she should have been um, with her performances last year, but I think she's really going to break out, be an All American, and I wouldn't be surprised if we saw All American finishes on the track as well, which makes her just someone huge that is hugely valuable. Let's move to Wilma Nielsen, who I think might seem like a little bit of a surprise inclusion on this just because we haven't seen her run for a while. But when we did last see her run this past indoor season, she was fantastic. All American finish in the 800, seventh in the final. And she just had a lot of really good performances throughout the regular season. 129,600. She followed that up with a 238 in the 1,000, 202 in the 800. And she's also a fairly useful runner on the grass, 23rd at the Midwest Regional last year. So she's an 800-meter runner who's also going to give you at least, she's not going to give you high end scoring potential, but she's going to give you some nice back end support for your cross country lineup, which a lot you can't say about a lot of 800-meter runners. She has 2 seasons of cross left, 2 seasons of outdoor, and 3 indoor seasons of eligibility left. So a lot of eligibility. And she seemed to be just hitting her stride at the end of indoor season last year. And if she can continue with that and build further from there, I think she's, again, someone that could rise on this list. And I think is someone that wouldn't be a surprise at 47 at all.
No, absolutely. I think eligibility is in her favor. And as you mentioned, she's on the rise, and it's not very common for the 800-meter women to fare as well in cross country. So for her to be able to dabble in both, and dabble very effectively, may I add, I think really helps her elevate herself on the list. And I think, as you said, like if she puts together another really solid track season and we do this again in 1 year's time, I think we're going to see her in a much, much higher number.
Absolutely. And then let's round out this group with Savannah Rourke. 1 season of cross country left, 2 seasons on the indoor and outdoor ovals. What did we see in her to put her at 46?
She is a superb cross country runner. 23rd at nationals this past season, and she was probably one of the biggest breakthroughs across the 2022 cross country season. We saw a 9th at the Cowboy Jamboree, 31st at Nottingham, 15th in the stacked ACCs, which honestly was probably her weakest result of the season. And then, as I mentioned, 23rd at nationals. I think the reason she's as far down on the list as she is, she's good on track, but I think her cross country really outshines that. And with only 1 season left of cross country, I think that's why she isn't finding herself higher up on this list. But hopefully she has a great cross country season, and that's able to take her, and she's then able to take those next steps when it comes to the track.
Yeah, if she breaks out on the track, then this is too low. But like you said, she just doesn't have enough cross country eligibility for us to really put her any higher. She had a great last fall. Really came out of nowhere. I didn't know if we could trust those first early performances, but she proved throughout the postseason that we really should have seen that coming. She really was fantastic. And if she can take that similar step forward on the track, then we're talking about one of the more well-rounded runners in the country. We're just not there yet, which is why we have her at 46. Let's go to the next group of 5, starting at 45th in our rankings, Sloan Ayildiz. At 44, we have Lindsey Butler of Virginia Tech. 43rd, we have Kaylee Mitchell of Oregon State. At 42, we have Bailey Hertenstein of Colorado. And at 41st, we have Carly Thomas of Washington. This was, I'm not going to lie, this was, I think, one of the hardest groups to rank. And starting with that, Sloan Ayildiz, who has been very good on the track, has 2 full years of eligibility left, but we haven't really seen her put it all together at the national championships. She's run really good times. She's been good at conference meets. She won the outdoor 1,500 meters at SECs last year and was 2nd in the mile last indoors. She's run 4:32 in the mile, 4:12 in the 1,500. She can run remarkably fast times, but hasn't gotten out of prelims at the national championships. And I wanted to be able to put her higher because she has a good amount of eligibility. She's clearly proven that she's one of the best middle distance runners in the country. And she did, I think that during, it was maybe the indoor season, there's a gap in between the conference and national championships when she like flew to Turkey for a race. So there's some extenuating circumstances there. But we just couldn't do it without any proven track record at the national meet.
Now, absolutely. What people are going to remember is how well you performed at that national meet. I think what she really has in her favor, though, is she does have 2 seasons, both indoors and outdoors, to get those adjustments right. The times are there and they speak for themselves. I mean, blistering fast mile time, and at least she's making it to the meets. Now she needs to focus on tuning up her race tactics, and then we're talking about a runner that's going to transcend her position at the moment. And moving to another track runner, someone that's very, very track orientated, is Virginia Tech's Lindsey Butler, 800-meter superstar who actually isn't that bad at cross country. But what doesn't bode well for her is her eligibility. She has 1 cross, 1 indoors, and 2 outdoors. Fantastic on the outdoors side, but she's known for winning that indoor 800-meter title 2022, and she was 10th in the mile this indoor season just gone. But what we need to see from her is that kind of more consistency. She struggled a little bit with injuries, but I think if she had the eligibility to back it up, we could see her much higher, because at the end of the day, she's a 2:01 800-meter runner.
If we had done this last year, I think she might have been a top 10 runner in our rankings. And obviously, 1 year of eligibility down, but also she just hasn't been as good. Whether it's due to just inconsistent performances or whatever, she just hasn't looked like herself. She's shown flashes, ran a good mile this past indoor season, showed some good times in the 800 this outdoor season, but you stack her up against the rest of the country in the 800, and she just didn't look like the old Lindsey Butler. So she's someone that I think we could have really had within like a 10 to 15 ranking range, because she's a national champion. She can perform as well as anyone on the biggest stages, but we just haven't really seen that in a year. And so, like, valuing or weighing those two different things, I think we landed at the right spot at 44 within our rankings, but on the lower side, just because she's kind of trending downwards and also doesn't have a ton of eligibility. But she's someone that could make us look very dumb in 6 months.
Most certainly. And I think, as you mentioned, is she's been performing well, but she's being outshone by the youngsters at the moment. They're really on the top of their game. And I think, not that she's running badly, it's just very difficult. She's not quite keeping up with them, which does set her back. And as we mentioned, eligibility certainly isn't in her favor.
Absolutely. And talking about some other names that don't have a lot of eligibility, the next 3 names on our list certainly do not. First of those is Kaylee Mitchell, who only has 1 season of cross and 1 season of indoor, is out of outdoor eligibility. And if she wasn't, I think we would be a lot more comfortable pushing her further up than 43rd. But despite that eligibility, I felt like we had to have her in our rankings. She was 18th at NCAA's this past year in cross country, qualified in the mile and in the 3K during the indoor season, is a threat to score in both of those events. And ultimately, I think that versatility and also that consistency in cross country, where you're going to get like a top 25 type of performance out of her, just that certainty compared to a lot of these other names for 1 year is ultimately, I think, what elevates her to this spot.
Now, I completely agree. I think you hit the nail on the head there, that she's so versatile and so reliable. You know exactly what you're getting. You're going to get that great cross performance in nationals. And then chances are you're going to see her qualify for 2 events indoors. And as you mentioned, most likely score in both of those. Super valuable for any team to pick up. Unfortunately, we're only going to get to see her do it 1 time around. But I think she's just too good to sit off this list, which is why I think we had to put her in. And another person that is just too good to keep off the list is Bailey Hertenstein of Colorado, a true cross runner. We saw a 5th NCAA cross, which is superb. She also backs that up with 15:38 5K. She's had a couple of minor injuries here and there, but when she's in shape, she's really in shape. But eligibility of 1 cross, no indoors, and 1 outdoor, that's ultimately what's holding her back. It's so hard to put someone who's come 5th at NCAA cross in 42nd position. But as I mentioned, with Mitchell, we're only going to get us here 1 more time.
Yeah, and ultimately it's and kind of the way that we frame this, and maybe should have mentioned this at the top, is who would you want if you're a head coach and you can bring someone into the program? And so maybe in these next few names that we'll mention, some incoming freshmen, you would rather be like, hey, you have 4 years, but you don't know if they're ever going to turn into someone as good as Hertenstein. But you're only getting Hertenstein for that 1 year, and she's only providing one value for that 1 year. So it again, there's no super right answer, and especially within these groups of five, you could really interchange them in any way. And I think Hertenstein's was a super difficult one to rank. And along those lines, Carly Thomas, showing flashes, running exceptionally well lately. I think just dropped, and I should have had this up, but I think she just ran too flat this past summer. She's dealt with injuries in the past. She came on super strong as a freshman. We haven't quite seen her get all the way back to that level, but she's still one of the best 800-meter runners in the country in an event that lost a lot of really good 800-meter runners this past year. So she can step in and fill that void a little bit. Sorry, so she's just run 202 several times, including a 202 just like 2 weeks before we were recording this. So she's been very good and run 159 this July. And sorry, that's the performance that I was thinking of. So she looks like she's at the top of her game again. And I it's hard to bet against her despite only having that 1 year of eligibility in indoor and outdoor.
Yeah, again, the last three names that we've just discussed, they're too good to not have on the list. A 159 800 meter runner, admittedly that's post collegiate season, but still superb time. She's showing fantastic consistency, and we know that the best of her is going to come from that indoors and outdoor seasons to which she has eligibility in both.
Absolutely. All right, let's go with this next group of five. And like we did on the men's side, this is kind of our freshman group right here. And starting out at 40th is Angelina Napoleon. 39th, we have Carrie Beluga. At 38, we have Tatum David. And then two veterans rounding out this group at 37, Kaylee McCabe of West Virginia. And 36th, Samantha Bush of NC State. Let's start with this group of freshmen. What do we see and maybe project forward for this group?
Okay, so Angelina Napoleon, she is off to NC State. For me, she's one of the most interesting runners out of all the recruits at the moment because she's extremely versatile. She runs a 203 800, but then she also happens to run a 6:18 2K steeplechase, which, doing some research, is actually the second fastest steeplechase time ever for a high schooler
I
at that
believe it. That's
distance.
so fast.
And then she obviously won the New Balance race for the steeplechase, Gatorade Track and Field Player of the Year. I mean, versatility like that is hard to come by, and she's going to fit in brilliantly at NC State. While she may not be their traditional long-distance recruit, she can really do it all. So I think she's a name that I'm really excited to see how she goes. I couldn't believe when I was reading 203 800 paired with a 6:18 2K chase.
Yeah, that's unbelievably fast. And then Carrie Beluga going to Colorado, incoming freshman as well, has won a title, a national title in cross country. So obviously very good there. But similar prowess on the steeplechase, 621 in the 2K steeple, 1027 in the 3K steeple. She's run 435 in the 1600. She's 920 in the 3K. Just fast across the board. Looks like just an absolutely dynamic, like long distance runner. I think going to be a perfect fit at Colorado, and is someone that I think could make an impact from day one, which is really exciting. I don't think this is going to be someone that it takes a while to acclimate to the NCAA. I think she's ready to contribute in a big way. And at Colorado, they've produced a lot of really, really good runners as they develop. And I think she could be the next in this group. And honestly, is someone that I think we could see in our top 25 next year in these rankings.
Absolutely. Speaking of someone that is probably going to make a very instant impact, and that is Tatum David. She's off to Virginia. Remarkably well rounded, fantastic on both the grass and the track. Great range when it comes to the track, 205 800, all the way up into a 1633 5K. I think to have that type of range in high school is superb. And from what we gather, she's very tactically sound, good head on her shoulders. So I think that's what the Cavaliers are going to need right now. And if she can make that instant impact at a young age, brilliant. We're going to see her for 4 years across all seasons. So she's going to be another one that's very, very exciting to keep an eye out for.
Yeah, and Virginia has had a lot of success. You think about with athletes who are early on in their career. You think of Margot Appleton. You think of why am I forgetting this name? Who left to go to UCLA? Mia Barnett. They obviously succeeded very early in their career there, and I think we can expect a lot of the same things from Tatum David. Going to the veterans, starting with Kaylee McCabe, 1 full year of eligibility across all 3 seasons left. Again, she is someone that is dynamic in every season. Great steeplechaser, was third at NCAA's this past spring, but also brings it on the grass as well. 24th at NCAA's last year. Had an undefeated streak going into NCAA's last fall. So someone that I think we feel comfortable saying could have been higher than even her 24th place run. Ran 850 in the 3K indoors, was sixth in the 3K at NCAA's indoors. Just scores, is an All American in every season. And not only an All American, not like someone who's just kind of slipping in like seventh or eighth. She's someone who is solidly an All American.
Absolutely. And I think someone that's in a very similar boat is Samantha Bush of NC State. She knows how to get it done. We all know how she races. She's superb, 15th at cross country last year, which helped propel NC State to their second team title. She was crucial in that team. A 15:35 5K. Admittedly, we haven't seen her race since April, so there's doubts whether she's fit and ready to go. But if she is fit and ready to go, she's going to be another very experienced runner who's going to make a huge, huge impact for their team. NC State need her, and she's been reliable as ever. She also has 1 year of eligibility across the board, and is one of those that eligibility is the only thing holding her back, because we know that she can be a huge impact across all 3 disciplines.
And we had her further back in our initial drafts of these rankings, but the more you look at her resume, it is just so solid. And I think she kind of gets lost in the shuffle of that NC State group of Tui and Camille and some of the incoming transfers from year to year, or some of the incoming freshmen. But there's just Samantha Bush, who I think is everything we want Marley Starlipper to be. And obviously Starlipper has a lot more eligibility, but Bush has proven that she can do it and do it consistently. And I think that's what makes her super exciting, and why she ultimately lands at 36, despite maybe not being a national title favorite at any point, or really being a true contender there, but being good across the board and having that 1 year of eligibility.
Absolutely. It's that countless consistency that goes a long way. And she is one of the most consistent in the game, which is why I think she needs to sit in this list as low as she does, despite only having very limited eligibility.
Absolutely. Let's go to our next group of 5, and leading this group is Elise Thorner at 35th, who just transferred to Florida from New Mexico. Coming in at 34th in the Stride Report rankings is Sophia Dudek of Stanford. At 33, we have Lexi Holiday Lowry of BYU. 32nd, we have Shannon Flockhart of Providence. And at 31st, we have Flamina Asakal, now at Florida, who just transferred from Alabama. So let's start with Thorner, who we saw make the move when Franklin left to go to Louisville from New Mexico. She joins teammate Amelia Mazzadowney in Florida. We do show her at 2 seasons of eligibility in cross country and indoor, and then 1 season outdoor. I think we've seen that she only is expected to take 1 full year, but regardless, is someone who is a key contributor during the outdoor season in the steeplechase, and then also is someone that you can rely on in the grass. All American finished 40th place in cross country this last fall and finished fifth at NCAA's in the steeplechase. Just a very dynamic athlete. And for a steeplechase specialist, you're getting a lot out of her on the grass as well.
Absolutely. I think you're seeing the trend on this list. Those that are well-rounded tend to see themselves higher, depending on their eligibility status. And thankfully, she does have a decent bit. And if she does only choose to use that 1 year, you're still getting the very best out of her on grass. She'll be a consistent conference scorer indoors. But then when it comes to outdoors, you're looking at someone that's a top 5 runner in the steeplechase. And those are going to be valuable things to have, especially for those larger teams. And I think making the move to Florida with her teammates is a fantastic decision. And I think we're going to see the Gators really step it up now that their team's looking very good.
Absolutely. I think the difference between her and McCabe is so slim. They're both excellent in the steeplechase, both excellent on the grass, both have basically and Thorner I think on paper has a little bit more eligibility, but they're just so very similar, and I think ranked right next to each other because of that. Let's move on and let's talk about someone that I think confounded us a lot in our cross country rankings and in our transfer value rankings, Sophia Dudek.
Absolutely. She is one of the most raw aerobic talents in the NCAA, but the big question mark always around her is her consistency and her health. We've seen her finish 20th in NCAA cross last season, and she dropped her PR down to 15:32 5K. Now that's up there with the very best in the NCAA. But then we saw after she ran that time, she struggled. There was a couple of races, there was a few DNFs in there, and there was a difficult run at the Polish Championships. What we feel with her is, when she's healthy, you're getting the very best. And eligibility is certainly in her favor. She has 2 cross, 3 indoors, 3 outdoors. There's plenty of times to get things right, which is why I think she finds herself in the position that she does find herself. If we knew that she was consistently healthy, not that that's something she can help. So it's very easy for us to sit here and say, oh, be healthy, when we know as runners it's difficult. But if we could see that consistency, then you're talking someone that is, this time next year, could skyrocket.
Yeah, she's someone who could be 15 positions higher or lower at the end of this year. Like it really could go one of two ways for her. She has the raw talent, as you mentioned. We just haven't seen it in practice for a little while. She obviously is a huge contributor on the grass when she's right, and then also can run those sparkling track times that you mentioned when she is fit on the track. So yeah, I think 34th is ultimately a good spot just because of that volatility, and I didn't want us to rank her too low or too high and be like, oh, we have to move her a ton in a few months. But I don't think I felt great about putting her in any particular spot, and putting her ahead of proven talents like Thorner, Bush, and McCabe was hard, but that eligibility ultimately pushes her ahead.
Absolutely. As mentioned, she's got time to get things right. It's a great group down at Stanford, and 2 incoming freshmen are going to really help that team standings, and hopefully that'll drive her on.
Absolutely. All right, let's go on and talk about another steeplechase star, Lexi Holiday Lowry. She was 4th at NCAA's this past spring in the steeplechase. You're kind of sensing a theme that this is our steeplechase group of rankings, but was also very good in cross country, 34th at NCAA's this past fall. Broke out in a big way during the indoor season, 8:57 in the 3K, 4:34 in the mile. So really fast times there. We believe that she has 2 seasons of indoor and 1 season of outdoor and cross country, although we do think that she could possibly get a second cross season depending on a waiver, where a situation where she maybe only ran once during 1 season in cross country. So there's some potential there for a little bit more eligibility. And I think unlike some of the other steeplechase women that we've talked about, she can also contribute on the indoor oval with those really fast times in the mile and 3K.
Now, absolutely. Steeplechasers are already always a very difficult group of runners to rank because you only get to see that once. And with only 1 year of eligibility on the outdoor circuit, we're going to get to see her do her primary event once. But as you mentioned, she's remarkably well-rounded, and those track times, those indoor ones, they speak for themselves. And that, if she can qualify for potentially 2 events at the Indoor Nationals, you're looking at a great deal of points for any team. So she'd be a really valuable pickup.
Absolutely, yeah. I think Holiday Lowry is someone, especially if she gets that extra season of cross country, fits perfectly in our top 35. Let's go to 32nd, and that is Shannon Flockhart. 2 full years of eligibility across all 3 seasons, and is the rare middle distance runner who it can be a really key contributor on the grass as well, right?
No, absolutely. She has that perfect blend of both. I think what really stands out for her at the moment is she may have some of the strongest momentum heading into this season on the grass. Post-season, or post-NCAA season, should I say. She set a new personal best in the 1500 meters, 4:08, and that actually was good enough to earn her a bronze medal at the European Under-23 Championships. That paired with an All-American finish in the 1500, she's looking in remarkably good shape, and if she can translate that speed onto the grass, we're going to see her excel from her positions in cross last season. And as Ben mentioned, 2 years across the board, plenty of time to get it right and plenty of time to improve.
Yeah, I think she's one of my favorite runners in the country, honestly. Just how dynamic she is. She's proven that she can run those fast times, but also is very tactically sound in the 1500 meters, which I think it makes her like just so much more valuable, especially when you're talking about like the indoor oval where tactics are super, super important. I think that's somewhere that she could exceed expectations this coming year. But let's talk. Go ahead. Here, you wrap
I was
up.
going to say, certainly, I think like being someone so tactically sound, I think it really favors her, especially across all 3 disciplines.
Certainly. Let's wrap up this group with Flamina Asakal, just transferred from Alabama after having a very successful career there to Florida, and is one of the big reasons why we are so excited about this Florida team this coming year. She has 1 full year of eligibility across the board. She was 3rd in the mile this past indoor season, didn't ultimately have a great outdoor year, didn't make finals in the 1500 meters, but that mile performance tells you all you need to know about her chops in the 1500 and mile, but is also one of the best runners in the country when it comes to cross country. She was 14th at NCAA's this past fall. I mean, again, you're talking about someone who not only should be an All-American across all these 3 seasons, but should be in the top half of the All-American picture in all 3 seasons. It's rare that you could say someone could be top 4 in their track events, and then also top 20 in the country when it comes to the grass. It's hard for anybody to be any higher than this with 1 year of eligibility and not be a favorite in any event. She is about as good as you're going to get for someone in that kind of range.
No, absolutely. I think what makes her even more rare is the 1500 meter cross double is a very interesting dynamic, and she really makes it work. We've seen glimpses of her being superb on the track. And as we know, 14th at the National Cross is no small feat. She's simply superb. And I think, as you mentioned, with only 1 year left, it's very difficult to rank her any higher.
Yeah, and if she was, and we'll see a few more women that are ranked ahead of her with only 1 year of eligibility, but a lot of those women are either title favorites in their event or at least title contenders. And it's hard to say that about Askell in any of those events, but you do feel comfortable about her being at least an All American, which ultimately lands her at 31st. But let's go to our next group of five, starting at the 30th spot. From Portland, we have Laura Pellicora. At 29th, Addie Angle of Ohio State. At 28th, from Oregon, we have Izzy Thornton Bott. 27th, we have Kelsey Camille of NC State. And rounding out this group at 26th, we have the youngster from Notre Dame, Siona Chisholm. Let's rewind and go back to Pellicora, who again is someone that has very good range and is just a contributor across all 3 seasons as well.
No, absolutely. Pellicora is someone that's extremely well-rounded. You're looking at a 2:03 800-meter runner who also happens to place in the top 25 at the National Cross Country Championships. Yes, she may be stronger in those indoor events, but to be as good as she is in cross makes it really, really desirable. And her eligibility is certainly in her favor. 2 seasons when it comes to cross, 2 indoors, and then 1 outdoors. I think we're going to see an even bigger improvement from her last fall.
Yeah, again, if she can kind of take that little half step forward and be a little bit more in contention when it comes to the track at national meets, then she is going to be just one of the best runners in the country because she obviously has shown that in on the grass in cross country, but again it's taken that little half step forward. 2 years of eligibility except for outdoor season. She could even really be right around this range again this time next year if she does make that small improvement.
No, absolutely. I think she made huge leaps in her fitness this past fall, and I'm sure we're going to see those on the track this coming year.
Let's go to 29 and Addie Angle of Ohio State. I think the calling card here is her performances in cross country. Very, very good on the grass, but also has been solid in the track. 15, she's run 34:43 in the 10K, 15:44 in the 5K. But again, she with 2 years of eligibility in cross country and indoor track, 1 season of outdoor. It really is cross country that is her calling card. 10th at NCAA's this past fall, and just was remarkably consistent. Did not finish outside the top 2 for the entire year until NCAA's. She is just as good as it gets in cross country without being a true title threat, and has 2 full seasons of that moving forward.
Yeah, absolutely. With cross being her discipline, it's very nice that we're going to get to see her for 2 more years. I think if she can make those improvements on the track side, then you're looking again at someone that could make a huge leap in this list within 1 year's time. At least 10 spots, as one of those 10 spots either way. If we see those jumps and improvements, then it's going to become very, very desirable for any coach to pick up. And
Absolutely.
I think, yeah. Sorry, go on.
I was just going to say, I think you're right on the money. Do we want to go to 28 and Izzy Thornton Bott?
Absolutely. Much like Askell, this is someone that can do the wonderful 1500 meter to cross double and do it in some style. Runner-up at cross-country. Runner-up NCAA Outdoor 1500 PR time of 4:08. But then, to be able to run as well as she did on cross, I think she's 36th at the national meet. But honestly, the highlight of her cross-country season might have been her 4th place at Pac-12s, where she took down some of the very best in cross-country. She beat Kaylee Mitchell. She beat Sophia Dudek. The potential is there for cross-country, but she is one of those 1 more year that we get to see her across all seasons. I think she'd be considerably higher.
Yeah, she is rock solid across the board. Again, you're getting not only are you getting a very good contributor in on the grass, you're getting an All-American and a favorite to be an All-American again this year. You're getting someone who realistically could win an NCAA title. And I don't think that's super far fetched. She was certainly a contender in the 1500 meters this past spring. And what they're building at Oregon, you wouldn't be surprised if she was among the group that kind of stacked the podium in the mile or the 1500 in the next year. So I really love what we saw out of her last year, and like you said, it's really just the lack of eligibility moving forward that is keeping her from being really a top 10 runner even on our list.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I wanted to rank her higher, but when you see those ones across the board, it's very hard to do so.
Certainly. Another athlete who at her best is one of the best runners in the country, Kelsey Camille of NC State. 1 year of eligibility left in cross country, 2 seasons left on outdoor. She was fantastic, quite frankly, during the last fall season, culminating with a third place run at NCAAs. She was second at ACC, second at regionals, second at Nuttycombe to only Caitlin Toohey, her teammate. Just an one of like really, if Caitlin Toohey did not exist, we would be talking about, I think, Kelsey Camille in a very different light than we are right now. But just because she has a teammate who's one of the best runners ever, we don't give her quite her shine that maybe she deserves. But really, one of the best cross country runners we've seen in a good while, has shown flashes during the indoor and outdoor season, had a really good indoor NCAA performances, fourth in the 5K, seventh in the 3K, again, scoring for you twice in indoors, scored for NC State once during the outdoor season, eighth in the 10K, was 16th in the 5K. Excuse me. Again, is someone who's scoring for you in 3 different seasons. Even though she doesn't have any eligibility left for indoors, she's going to make the most of her outdoor and cross country eligibility.
Most certainly. For me, she's probably the most important piece in NC State's puzzle when it comes to the cross-country team. You know exactly what you're going to get from her. She's going to perform very, very highly. And she has the ability to do it on track too, which we love those well-rounded runners. And has been mentioned, unfortunately, eligibility isn't on her side. But even with those ones left, you know what you're going to get, which makes her very important, which is why she still finds herself on this list.
Do you think she's going to be able to replicate that same kind of season she had this past cross country?
I sure hope so.
Yeah.
I think they need her to.
Right. They need that top-heavy approach to really come through, right?
They really do. I think especially with Florida loading up and Colorado also loading up, they need to be on top of their game, and they're going to need her to be as close to Toohey as she possibly can. So I'm sure she will. She seems to get it right 90% of the time, so I wouldn't be surprised if she's just as good, if not slightly better.
Yeah. The one other thing, she's just great at peaking, it seems, at the right time, whether it's in cross country or on the track. The last person in this group at 26 is Sienna Chisholm. I am like irrationally high on Chisholm, so you're going to have to probably walk me back a little bit. But 3 full years of eligibility, just came on in such a great way at the end of the last cross country season. And then this past spring really showed that she has some chops on the track as well. And with those 3 full years of eligibility, I wanted to put her in the top, even as high as the top 20, but she's still a little unproven compared to maybe some of these other women on this list.
No, absolutely. You and Garrett both huge Chisholm fans, which is fantastic. And as you mentioned, she's got a seriously high upside. She killed it her first year at Notre Dame. And I think for me, her national performance as a freshman, still very good, 81st place at the cross. I think her ACC result stands out to me 7th. ACC, particularly on the women's side, probably one of the hardest conferences to be in. And as you said, she was really good on the track as well. And 10th place at your first outdoor national meet. What's not to like? 3 years to go, plenty of time to improve and continue impressing. I see why you guys are high on her, and I completely agree. But I do think middle of the park's very good, because particularly on the cross side, we haven't quite seen all of those results. We've seen very good flashes. Not trying to say 81st isn't good, but compared to the 7th at ACCs, I don't think those two quite line up, which is why I think it's good to place her where we've placed her.
Yeah, I mean, she definitely came on towards the end of last year, so it'd be good to see her have more of a complete, consistent cross country season this coming fall. But yeah, that 7th place performance came out of nowhere. It was fantastic. It was one of the reasons why Notre Dame almost upset NC State, was Chisholm just coming out of nowhere to run inside the top 10. So yeah, that race, I think, just garners her so much goodwill moving forward from me. And if she can continue to replicate that, then she's someone that's going to be in the top 20 at least next year in these rankings. But let's go to the next group of 5 women on our rankings. Coming in 25th, we have incoming freshman Irene Riggs. 24th, we have Greta Karanuskate of California Baptist. At 23rd, we have the new Longhorn, Olivia Howell from Texas. At 22nd, another newly transferred runner, Amelia Mazzadowney from New Mexico, headed to Florida. And then, we sensing a theme here, another runner who transferred within the last year, Amaris Tanisma of NC State. But let's start with the freshman Riggs, who's headed to Stanford this year, and is one of the reasons why Garrett and I are also irrationally high on the Stanford women, because we think she can come in and contribute in a big, big way. Just one of the better cross-country runners that we've really seen come through the high school ranks. She has very good track times as well, 4:37 in the 1600, 9:14 in the 3K, and 16:02 in the 5K. She's just going to come in and I think not be afraid to put her nose right in the front of cross country races, especially those early season ones, and not be afraid to really she's not going to get dropped. I think she's going to put her nose in, and she's not going to be afraid of getting dropped at all. And I think that's what makes her very exciting. Maybe she ends up blowing up in a few races because of that, but I think she's going to, by the end of this year alone, be one of the better cross-country runners in the country.
No, absolutely. I think she's going to be one of those extremely exciting runners, particularly on the cross circuit. And I think what's good for her is joining the Cardinals. You've got Sophia Dudek, who can almost be her guide this first cross-country season. Honestly, if she's fit and healthy, there's no better guide to have.
Yeah.
Also paired with Amy Bunnage, who, spoiler, we will get to at some point. Amy Bunnage, she's going to be able to help too. So you've got 2 youngsters being guided by someone that's already done it and is already an All-American on cross. So I agree, there's a lot to like about Riggs.
Absolutely. Let's go and talk about the steeplechase star. I think the steeplechase favorite until we got to NCAAs, and that is Greta Karanuskate, who I think will again return and be one of those steeplechase favorites, along with Olivia Markozic. We didn't see a great cross country season out of her, but after this past spring, I think we're going to see some big things from her.
Absolutely. For me, I think she was a very difficult one to rank. In terms of eligibility, 2 for cross and then 1 for outdoors. And with steeple being her primary event, that's very difficult because she's only going to get 1 shot at being that national title contender. And she was so close to doing it this past season. But with a disappointing cross, it's difficult, especially as that is her most favorable distance when it comes to the eligibility standpoint. But we saw her transform into this tremendous steeplechase runner on the track. So I wouldn't be surprised if we see a huge jump in fitness when it comes to this cross-country season. So in my head, I'm almost completely dismissing what happened on the grass last fall. Not that it was that bad, it was just nothing really special comparatively to her 9:26 steeple and 15:36 5K.
And running those times largely by herself too, like just front running them. Yeah, so I agree. It's like I don't even. It seems like she's just a completely different runner after this spring. So I'm projecting big things from her this cross country season, and I think if she does that, then I mean she's going to be one of the more well rounded runners in the country. Let's go to Olivia Howell though, who again, only 1 year of eligibility left, but is someone that isn't necessarily going to be your front runner in cross country, but is going to provide back end support for you at the very worst. And at our very best, maybe she is one of those top two, top three kind of runners for you when it comes to your cross country lineup. But the selling point for her is obviously her ability on the track, where she won a NCAA title in the mile this past indoor season. 434 at altitude is no joke, and that was always the thing with Hal was she was tactically strong, had a great kick, but we weren't sure if she would be able to really compete in really fast, really hard races. And I think this past indoor season proved that she could. And while she didn't have the best 1500-meter championships this past spring, she was 8th in the final. I loved how aggressive she was running alongside Caitlin Tui. And I think that really proved to me that she no longer feels like she has to run those sit and kick races. She feels confident running those like go from the gun kind of races. And if she can do that too, then she is one of the more complete 1500-meter runners in the country, and someone that it's really hard to see her losing many races if she can compete in both of those kind of setups.
Absolutely. We talked about her tactical prowess. She is one of the very best at that game. And going into the indoor season, I would have said she wasn't exactly the favorite heading
No.
into the mile, yet she still executed that race with no fear. And as you said, 434 at altitude is no joke whatsoever. And then while 8th isn't necessarily where we were expecting her to see, she was aggressive, and 8th isn't a bad result. It does back up how good she was indoors. And I think the kind of consistency there, the no fear in trying to get the job done, makes her really valuable. And at the end of the day, how can you not include an athlete who does have a national title to their name?
Yeah, and it might seem high again for someone with only 1 year of eligibility left to be at 23rd, but again, she's going to be a national title favorite, or at least at the very least contender in 2 seasons. So, and she's not providing zero on the grass. So all those factors make her insanely valuable. Texas got a really, really good get there. But let's wrap up this group with Amelia Mazza-Downey and Mars Tenisima. Mazza Downey headed to Florida, obviously, 2 seasons of eligibility in cross and indoor, 1 season of outdoor. I actually just had the opportunity to interview her. I get the sense that she's only going to be using 1 year, but still, she is a very complete runner across all 3 seasons.
No, I agree. She, for me, is one of the most well-rounded runners around, if I can say that. 8 All-American finishes, 22nd cross-country this past year, and a 15:18 5K. That's a superb time. Bearing in mind, Caitlin Tui runs, I believe it's 15:14. So you're not far off there, and a superb
No,
10K.
Tui's like 15:0 something. She got the collegiate
I'm
record.
thinking on her Tifas is
Yeah.
still, so I'm sorry, my bad. But you know what I mean? It's still remarkably close to someone that's a national title winner.
Hmm.
So the times are there to back it up. And while we know that she's probably only going to use one of those, you're still getting someone that is remarkably key and has the ability to score points across all disciplines.
Yeah, and score points in the 5K and 10K outdoors. She should score in multiple events, which is very valuable as well. And then talking about someone who can score points in a variety of events, Amar Sinisima, absolutely huge get for NC State. Great track record on the grass. She's finished as high as 3rd in the country at NCAA's in cross country. She was ninth last year. She ran 8:55 in the 3K indoors and then followed that up with an outdoor season that culminated with a fourth place finish in the 5K. She ran 15:30 earlier in the year. She can also provide a lot of value for you in the 1500 meter and the mile, obviously can do so in the 3K, 5K as well. And then, I mean, really, she's kind of gone on the radar as just one of the top 10 cross country runners of the past like 2 or 3 years. Like, you think about the different performances that she's had, um, they're as good as it gets. And despite only having 1 year of eligibility, I mean, we could be realistically talking about three women in the top five for NC State this coming fall in cross country, with her joining Camille and Tui.
Yeah, absolutely. She's remarkably versatile. And I think going back to what we mentioned earlier, NC State need that kind of huge front three, and she provides that for them. And her, Chisholm, and Tui, superb. And I think that's what's really going to potentially drive them to their next title. With only 1 year of eligibility, it's difficult to move her any higher. But one person that also has 1 year of eligibility across the board is none other than Olivia Markovic of Notre Dame. Nobody had a better, in my eyes, I don't think anyone had a better year than her last year. 4 All-American honors across 3 seasons. Now that's what we're really talking about when it comes to transfer value. The ability to be that good across all 3 disciplines is superb. 8th at cross country, and then running that number 3 NCAA all-time mark, 9:25, and then bettering it at USA's to run 9:17. Simply superb. Someone you would really want to have because she can get the work done cross, indoors, and outdoors.
Yeah, she obviously won that title in the steeplechase this past outdoor season. Returns as the steeplechase, I think co-favorite, I would say, with Karanuske. And then she really, I think, surprised herself even with her performances during the indoor season, and running really well in the 3K at NCAA's as well. So again, providing value during the indoor season as well. And then again, she's one of the best cross country runners in the country. Wouldn't be shocking to see her in the top 5 as well at the end of the year. Just a superb talent who gives you also that title threat, which I think might be lacking with some of these other women with 1 year of eligibility that we've mentioned so far. So yeah, she's our first name in our next group of 5. She's at the number 20th spot in our rankings. At number 19 in the Stride Report transfer value rankings, we have Jane Buckley. 18th, we have Amina Matu. 17th, Doris Cherup. And at 16th, we have Sophia Goriran. I'm sorry.
Gorian. I believe it pronounces you Gorian.
Gorian. All right. Thank you. Hey, this is why we pay you the big bucks for the pronunciation. So, I am terrible at that. So we already mentioned Markovic. Let's start with Jane Buckley. So much eligibility for her as well. You're talking about someone who has 3 years of eligibility during the cross and outdoor season, and 4 seasons of eligibility left on the indoor circuit. Very young runner, but very dynamic as well. Won the Big East Championships last year during the fall, followed that up with a 49th place finish at NCAA's. And then during the outdoor season ran 15:41 and ultimately was 13th in the 5K at NCAA's. Again, not a huge track record, but this is almost as good of a track record as you're going to get with someone that has this much eligibility left. She could turn into a true low stick for this Providence team during the cross country season. And then it looks like she's on track to be a scorer, at least in the 5K during the indoor and outdoor seasons as well.
Absolutely. You mentioned earlier that Chisholm was very high on your list. The highest on my list has to be Jane Buckley. I think she's been simply superb her freshman year. To take the time to adjust to moving to the States rather seamlessly and get involved on the grass, superb on the grass. And then we saw her on the track, really strong on the track. And I think she's making those steps each and every race. And I think we're going to see a lot more from her. And as you mentioned, so much eligibility and plenty of time to get it right.
Absolutely. Yeah. She's just huge talent with so much time to like fully get it right. Like you're going to get value from her this year, but you're probably you're probably going to get so much more in her last 2 years, which is really scary to think about. Let's talk about Amina Matug. 2 full years of eligibility left. Has shown flashes of being possibly one of the best 1500-meter runners or mile runners in the country, but we haven't seen her quite put it all together at the national stage.
Now, absolutely, she's another one that's had a little bit of difficulty getting it right when the lights are brightest, but she really burst onto the scene last year, 4th place at ACC Championships, which I would have said was probably the highlight of her season. Her 28th at National Cross is still very, very strong. But as we mentioned earlier, ACC Cross, particularly on the women's side, that's a really tough conference. And then to back it up with the very flash times of 8:55 for 3K and 4:29 for the mile, I think she's going to be one that, yes, she has one All-American finish so far in that 5K this past outdoor season. But I think if she can step it up at the national level, you're looking at someone that could really transcend her 18th ranking.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more there. Let's go to Doris Cherup, who I think also goes by Doris Lemon Goal. New runner to Alabama, has 4 years of eligibility left, and has we don't know for sure exactly what the PRs are that she's coming in, but she has run 9:35 in the steeplechase according to World Athletics, which is blisteringly fast. And then we also see a 14:45K road performance on her profile as well. Again, 4 years of eligibility left. And with those times, could be a national title favorite from the get go. Again, she's someone that could instantly jump into our top 3 if she runs the like similar times as what we've seen on her profile. We just don't know exactly where to put her without seeing her in the NCAA yet, but has the potential of being one of the best runners in the country and has 4 years to be able to figure that out.
No, absolutely. She's a bit of an unknown entity, which I think is why we've seen her slip slightly back in this list. But from what I gather, she got her NCAA career off to a strong start with a win at the Southern Showcase. Looked very comfortable there. So there's a lot to like, and I think this ranking is kind of a very tentative one. We're not quite sure where to put her. The times are extremely fast, but one of them admittedly is road, so we're not quite sure what the course was like. But I think this is a good spot for her, and she can definitely improve with 4 years left.
Yes, I would be stunned to see her outside of our top 10, quite frankly, after this year. So let's wrap up this group with Sophia Gorian, incoming freshman, outstanding 800-meter runner. Tell us a little bit more about her.
Yeah, two flat for 800 meters in high school is simply, for me, beyond comprehension. And she actually holds her own in cross, which is a difficult thing to do, especially when you're so talented in the 800. Also, her mile time is very strong, 4:37. That would get you pretty close to qualifying in the NCAA Indoor Championships. 4 years to go across the board. Extremely, extremely valuable. And I think Harvard's going to be a great move for her.
Yeah, and as we've seen from past freshmen, Roisin Willis and Juliet Whitaker, you can come right in and be a huge factor in the 800 meter as a freshman, and she looks like, again, if all those 3 women stay in school for the next few years, they're going to have some epic battles between the 3 of them.
No, absolutely. You're looking at one of the next 800 meter stars, and she's off to Harvard, and her name's Sophia Gorian.
I don't know if I wrote that down wrong, and that's why I was having that much trouble with it. I'm going to blame it on that.
Well, I must say I've spent all morning trying to practice pronunciations for names that I couldn't get first go.
You prepared better than me. Let's go to our next group of 5. Starting at 15th, we have Claudia Kazimierska. At 14th in the Stride Reports transfer value rankings, we have Mia Barnett of now Oregon, those two Oregon teammates now. At 13th from Washington, we have Sophie O'Sullivan. 12th, Margot Appleton of Virginia. And 11th, Natalie Cook, now of Colorado. I think one of the reasons why we needed to make these rankings, I'm realizing as we're going through this, is so many people transfer. I mean, you think about how many people in our top 50 have already transferred once. It's pretty crazy to think about. But let's begin with Claudia Kazimierska. Had a really good indoor-outdoor year, finished the outdoor season with a 4th place finish in the 1500 meter at NCAA's. And then in the mile at NCAA, she was 6th. So really good performances there. Didn't really have a great cross country season. Was running, but just it didn't seem like it all clicked for her. I'm banking that she's going to be able to put it together in a much better way and be a much bigger contributor for the Oregon Ducks this cross country season. But even without that, what she has done on the track, combined with 3 full years of eligibility across all seasons, I mean, she realistically could win at least one NCAA title by the time she's done with school.
No, absolutely. And as you said, I think her cross country is only going to improve from here, especially after viewing how good she was on the track. And to be fair, first year to do as well as she did, simply superb. And another person that does have a decent amount of eligibility, and her now teammate, admittedly she has bounced around quite a few times when it comes to transferring, is Mia Barnett. Another runner that is extremely well-rounded. 44th place at NCAA Cross is a very strong performance. And she also has run 4:10 or faster in the 1500 4 times last spring. And her PR of 4:08 was very, very strong. I think having someone well-rounded on the grass and the track, as we've mentioned previously, is so valuable when coming into these rankings. And she was very unlucky to be tripped in those preliminary rounds. And I think her spot could have changed had we have seen her make it into that final. But unfortunately, her appeal didn't go through when she was tripped. So 14th feels like a good spot, but I think there could honestly be room for argument there.
Yeah, I think we could have, I think, pushed her almost as high as 10 in these rankings. She's obviously shown that she can be a huge contributor across the board. You wonder if she ever will contend truly for an NCAA title, but at the very worst, she's going to be an All-American across 3 different seasons. And that, with 2 years of eligibility, that is really, really hard to beat. At 13, we have one of the off season's biggest breakout stars, Sophie O'Sullivan, Washington, 2 full years of eligibility left. Just going to quickly go through some of her performances just from this past summer. She ran 4:07 to win the European U23 championships in the 1500 meters. She comes back, runs 2:37 in the 1000, runs 4:02 in the 1500 meter, comes back, runs 8:44 in the 3K, and then to wrap it all up, 2:01 in the 800. Just showing incredible range and just PRs that are, quite frankly, worlds better than pretty much everyone else in the country. Showed signs of it at the end of this past spring season during the NCAA year, but has clearly taken a huge step forward. And she was one of the hardest people to rank because we haven't really seen her at the top level at NCAA during the NCAA season, but her times would tell you she should be the favorite in almost any event that she runs.
Absolutely. It's very exciting to be a O'Sullivan fan right now. Huge summer. And with those leaps in fitness, I'm sure we're going to see improvements in cross. She's a very solid cross runner for someone that's slightly more track orientated. But with that eligibility, she's got time going at potentially, you're looking at a title indoors, title outdoors, and then the same the following year. someone that's going to be very popular. And those times, as we mentioned, speak for themselves.
Yeah, you could tell me almost anything with her and I would believe it. Like you could tell me she wins 2 titles. You could tell me she's like just like has just a few all-American finishes. Like there I feel like are so many possibilities after what she's just done this past outdoor or this past summer. She'll be probably one of the more interesting runners to watch when she debuts this cross country season. But let's go to Margot Appleton, 2 full years of eligibility as well. The Virginia runner has really kind of, I feel like, hit her stride over the last year. I was super high on her as one of the 1500-meter title contenders last year. But maybe talk about what she really showed in particular during this last year.
I think what was really impressive, she was very good on grass, and then she transitioned into being great on track. 55th National Cross, very strong result. But then indoor nationals, she had good PRs going in, but then to come fourth place in the mile, seriously impressive in a very stacked mile group. Then on the outdoor season, she just got even better. A 15:36 5K and a 4:08 1500, remarkable range. And then we also saw her pick up a medal at the national meet. She was able to peak when it was right. She's got momentum in her favour, and I think the fact that she has 2 seasons of eligibility across the board makes her very likeable. And you could say at the moment no one has as much momentum as she does as we move on to the grass.
Yeah, she's just improved so much and her versatility and her just tactical awareness in general. Like there is hardly anything to like about her. Really, if she could have won a title last year, I think you could argue her as high as almost like 8 on our list. But as it stands, she is 12, and that ultimately could even be a little too low. Let's go to Natalie Cook. Again, one of the hardest people in our rankings to find the right spot for 3 years of eligibility in cross country and indoor, 4 full seasons left for the outdoor seasons. Was just fantastic at times last fall. She started like her college career by winning the Cowboy Jamboree against some of the best runners in the country, followed that up with 4th place finish at Big 12s, and was 7th at NCAA's. She makes the move now to Colorado, and show and after that cross country season ran 15:24 at BU in December, but we never really got to see her look right after that. Um, she has dealt with injuries in the past. Was one of the best high school runners in the country when she came out, and clearly has a ton of talent, clearly has proven that she can compete with the best of the best, at least on the grass, and has so much eligibility. But the injury concerns and the fact that we haven't really got to see her run a true national championship on the track when healthy and see how she kind of does with the tactics and everything, I think ultimately push her back to 11th. But there is a compelling argument for as high as like the top 5 or 6, I feel like.
Absolutely, there's a lot of question marks around her, but I think she's one of those, if she's fit and healthy, you could be looking at the next great of NCAA women's running. Burst onto the scene in her first ever collegiate race, and then she just kept getting better. Her performance at nationals was superb. We saw glimpses on the track before she got hurt. Remarkably fast, and I will admit, as you mentioned, it would be really nice to see her, how she would have fared kind of a nationals, outdoors and indoors. But I think she's got plenty of time to get it right, and hopefully the move to Colorado works in her favor.
Absolutely. Let's go to our next group of 5, and we have reached the top 10 portion of our transfer value rankings. And coming in at 10th, we have Amy Bunnage of Stanford. 9th, we have Elise Stearns of Northern Arizona University. Coming in at 8th in the Stride Reports transfer value rankings, we have Maya Ramsden of Harvard. At 7th from Florida, Parker Valby. And then in 6th, we have from Alabama, Hilda Olemame. this is a loaded group. I mean, I talked about how some of the women from the lower group could maybe be within this top 10 realistically, but the reason they aren't is these are really impressive women. Amy Bunnage, some of the best PRs of anyone coming into their freshman year of the NCAA, 4 full years of eligibility. But walk us through some of those crazy PRs.
Yeah, Amy Bonage may be the person I'm most excited to see toe the line in her first NCAA race. These speak for themselves. An Australian under-20 record in both a 3,000, 8:51 and a 5,000, 15:21. And I think one of the most impressive PRs, a 4:14, 1,500. This was ran back in 2021 when she was just 16. Immensely talented. I don't really know what else to say when it comes to her. I think she's joining a superb group with Riggs and Dudek. Just can't wait, really. I think 4 years, plenty of time to get it right. But those PRs speak for themselves. We could see someone that's already top 10 caliber when it comes to cross, indoors, outdoors, even at such a young age.
I mean, she could be the next Caitlin Tui. I mean, and that's kind of a ridiculous thing to say, and I hate to put that kind of pressure on her, but like that's in the cards for her. Like she's coming in with better PRs than Tui did, and so she'll be one of the more interesting runners to watch this cross country season. We have her actually ranked, I think, higher in this than we do on our individual cross rankings, because she has 4 years of eligibility left, which is, I mean, again, maybe she's not going to be a top 10 runner in the country when it comes to cross country this year or even on the track this year, but she's got 4 full seasons to do it. And I would bet my life savings that we're going to see at least, I'll say at least one title by the time she finishes school. Let's go to number 9. Elise Stearns from NAU has 2 full years of 2 years on the cross, 2 years indoor, and then 1 year of outdoor eligibility left. Was just so good in cross country last year. 4th at NCAAs. She was 3rd at Nuttycombe, 5th at Cowboy Jamboree. Just never had a bad race. Was super solid, super consistent. Followed that up with 15:33 performance in the 5K during the indoor season. We did not really get to see her that much afterwards. She was 11th at NCAAs in the 5K during the indoor season, but we did not get to see her this past outdoor season. That said, she's truly one of the best runners in the country in cross country, and I think after Tui, if Tui leaves after this year, we could be talking about her as the national title favorite, possibly in cross country in 2 years. And then if she can kind of continue to build on that really good 5K that she ran at BU and continue to improve on the track, you're talking about maybe one of the more well-rounded runners. But as it stands, she's top 5 cross country runner in the country with 2 seasons of eligibility, and that's what really puts her at number 9.
Absolutely. The cross speaks for itself. We've seen her be good on the track. And I think if she does make those improvements indoors and out, then we're going to really see her in her final year. We're looking at someone that could slip into the top 5 on this list despite having limited eligibility. She's that good. Mm-hmm. Someone who, I know we mentioned the rarity of the 1,500 cross-country double.
Yep.
We might have the queen here, and that is Maya Ramsden of Harvard. I think everything went right for her across every single season last year. 11th at Nationals, plus she was mighty consistent all year round. Then All-American finish in both the 3K and the mile, 4:30 and 8:54. Fantastic chance. Then we saw her take down Tui and Co. at the 1,500 outdoors. A huge threat across all 3 disciplines, and she has 2 years across the board. I don't really know what else to say. Ben, what would you like to add
I
to
mean,
that?
she's someone that could realistically finish top 5 in every single race she runs in, like, this whole year, including in cross country, including every single track race she steps on the starting line for. She's that good. She's going to be again a title favorite in the mile, in the 1500. She's probably still going to score points for you in the 3K as well, and maybe the 5K as well, doubling back. And she's going to be a top 10 runner in the country when it comes to cross country. Like she has 2 full years of 2 full years of eligibility left. I mean, ridiculously good. And the fact that she's at 8 should tell you how good the rest of this group is ahead of her. It is outstanding and kind of crazy that someone at her level with a national title under her belt is all the way and 2 full years of eligibility is all the way back at 8.
Yeah, it's hard to put it there, but as you mentioned, the women we've got coming up are seriously good. But I think dabbling in that 1500 cross, not many people can say that they can come top 5 in all the races that they do. I think that's just spectacular.
Absolutely. Let's go to Parker Valby. I don't think she needs much introduction. 2 seasons of eligibility in cross country, 2 indoors, and then we're not sure. I think 1 year outdoors, but could be 2 depending on maybe waiver situation there. Won her first NCAA title this past spring in the 5K, but is perennially one of the top contenders in every race she competes in. Was second at NCAA's this past fall. He just, I mean, the times speak for themselves. 8:49 in the 3K, 15:20 in the 5K, and she just has proven that she can compete with pretty much anyone. And the only one who's really been able to beat her at her very best, it seems like, is Caitlin Toohey, which tells you how good she is compared to the rest of the NCAA.
Yeah, there's not too much more to say about her. Loves to run aggressively, really works in her favor. We saw that at cross. While I say works in her favor, second is still superb. It didn't quite hold off Tui, but despite her racing lightly for health concerns, she seems to always turn up at nationals despite how patchy the season leading up to it may be, and to have her be ready when it matters, because at the end of the day, the national meets are what matters. And she's always there, and she's always running brilliantly. Huge name on our list. Moving on to number 6, Hilda Holomoy, someone that is simply superb across all 3 disciplines, and a freshman year that just proved how amazing she was. 6th place at her first cross-country national meet. Then indoors and outdoors were just as successful, where she earned herself All-American honors in the 3 and the 5. And then All-American honors in the 10K outdoors. We saw her put her focus on that. PRs are also remarkable. Like, you're looking at someone that can run an 8:45 3K, which is faster than Valby's, and a 15:17 5K. Superb PRs, and then backs it up when it comes to the racing. With eligibility of 3 in cross, 2 indoors, 2 outdoors. I mean, what's not to like about her? She's really well-rounded. And I think that's why she is so high on our list.
She's not the title threat that Valby is, although I could see her winning a 10K title this coming year during the outdoor season. But you're just getting a lot more consistency. You're not dealing with the injury concerns like you do with Valby, and those times are spectacular. And again, she's not. While she might not be like the true blue title like favorite in anything, she's not going to be far behind in any race she's in. She's almost always going to be in that top 5, top 8 in every race. So, yeah, I think maybe some people will be surprised to see her over Volley, but the consistency plus a little bit more eligibility, I think ultimately gives her the edge. Let's go to our top 5 of the Stride Reports transfer value rankings. And coming in the number 5 spot, we have Michaela Rose of LSU. 4th, I bet people didn't expect her to land here. 4th, we have Caitlin Toohey of NC State. 3rd, Juliet Whitaker of Stanford, her teammate Roisin Willis at the second spot of Stanford. And then coming in at number 1, Addie Wiley of NAIA Huntington University. That is our top 5. So let's start with Michaela Rose. And I don't think we have to say a whole lot about her. 2 full seasons of eligibility left on the track. She's won an NCAA title. She runs at 2 flat. It feels like every single run, every time she's toes the line for the 800 meters, she's has a PR of 159. I mean, we're in a golden age right now of young 800-meter runners, and yet she's still proven to be one of the best. And the only reason she's behind Whitaker and Willis, she has 1 year left, less of eligibility. Otherwise, she's right there with them.
No, absolutely. Someone that's remarkably talented. And for an 800-meter runner, she does provide her worth in cross country too, which I think has to be noted as well.
Yeah.
But as you mentioned, she doesn't quite crack our top 3 only because she's got 1 year less. And I'm going to do my very best to explain why Caitlin Tui sits in number 4. I don't think I really need to introduce her. We all know her. We know how fast she does run. Her eligibility suggests 2 cross, 2 indoors, 1 outdoors. The likelihood is we're not going to see her use that. We don't really know how much she plans on using. We'll see her this cross season, but are we going to see her from then on? Nobody really knows. And I think the uncertainty around how much she's going to use, because at this stage, the world's her oyster. She can do whatever she wants. She's that talented. I think she'll want to try and lead NC State, NC State to their next NCAA title. I think the uncertainty around it, we kind of have to put her here, especially when we can count on the 3 women ahead of her sticking around for a little longer.
Yeah, and I mean, Tui's going to win a title in every season she runs in, as long as she's healthy. But you can pretty much say the same thing about the 3 women ahead of her as well. Like, they're going to be first or second in every national championship they're in. And they just have 3 full years of eligibility to do it. That we're not saying these women are necessarily better than Tui. It's just their talent along with their eligibility ultimately give them the edge. So with Whitaker and Willis, we can almost put them together. Whitaker slightly down from Willis just because she has not won that NCAA title like Willis has, but was spectacular during her first indoor season, finishing second in the country in the 800. Strangely chose to run the 1500 meters at regionals and during the spring season, and that did not go great, but we expect her to be in the 800 and be top 3 in that for the next 3 years, indoor and outdoor.
I completely agree. The pair of them to be as good as they were as true freshmen, I think speaks for itself. Willis with an indoor gold, then backed up with an outdoor silver, 159, truly superb time. And as for Whitaker, superb indoors.
For Willis? Sorry. Are you talking about Whitaker or Willis?
Whitaker now, good indoors, but then I think, as you mentioned, a little bit of an interesting decision to choose 1500. But with her PRs, I think we know how good she's going to be when she does choose to go back in the 800 meters.
Absolutely, yeah. Both of them are going to be mainstays on this list as long as they're in the NCAA. They probably won't get any higher. Maybe they'll be 1 and 2 next year, but they're just going to be always in this top group, I think, for as long as they're here. And our number 1, I think everybody was thinking that maybe we're just doing Division I runners, but no, we're talking about every runner in the NCAA, and that includes Addie Wiley, who has put together one of the best streaks that we've seen over this offseason. Even better, I think, than Sophie O'Sullivan. She ran 157 this past September in the 800, and then followed that up with a 359 in the 1500 meters. Ridiculous time. She would come into the Division I level if she transferred and automatically be a favorite in the 800. and the 1500 meter with those times. She ran a great, really, really well in the 1500 meter at USA Championships, finishing fifth, running 4:04 in the 1500 meter there, nearly qualifying for World Championships. Wouldn't it be a stunner to see her in the Olympics next year? She is that good, and she has 3 full years of eligibility. Quite frankly, if any team got her, it would be one of the probably the biggest transfer pickup of all time. And that ultimately is why she's number one.
Absolutely. I mean, at the end of the day, there's pros that don't crack 4 minutes
No.
in the 1500 on the women's side.
Or 158. Go under 158.
Yeah, absolutely. 158 as well. And for her to do it off just running her freshman year in university, to do that in the same summer, simply superb. And I think, as you said, like, if she were to transfer into Division 1, who knows whether she will. That's probably the biggest transfer pickup ever. I think that will be front page news.
Absolutely. So that is the Stride Report's transfer value rankings on the women's side. So glad that you are all able to join us. Let us know any thoughts, any critiques. I know it's going to be a little surprising to see some of these names, but again, we're talking about talent plus eligibility. Both of those things are super important. But thank you for doing this with me, Finn. It's been a really fun ride to do the men and women's transfer value rankings with you and kind of sort through how we got there.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you very much for having me. And I hope our viewers and listeners enjoyed this as much as we did, collecting all of the names and analyzing all of the times, results, and eligibility statuses.
Absolutely. All right. Well, thank you again to Finn, and thank you all for listening. Until next time, we'll talk.